Hey ladies and gentlemen, um, welcome to another Curse Studio tutorial. Thanks for joining me. Um, this tutorial will be, well, I think it will be a bigger tutorial. I'm not sure how much I have to tell you. Since I have over 500 followers now on VMO. I don't know if this is much or not, but I just hit over 500 followers this month. I will share the scene file with you as a little thank you, so you can play around with stuff. And I will explain as much as I can what I did and how it is done, the whole process. I will not model anything or something like that because I will share a scene file with you, but I will show you how you can do it on your own, and I will try to teach you some benefits and things like that. What we will be creating in the end is something like that, or you will get the same shot because you get the same scene file and the same setup. You just need to do some color correction later on in After Effects. I will show you some things in After Effects, what I did and things like that. Also, what I want to mention, if you want to be more informed about my new tutorials and things like that, you can also join me on Facebook and simply search for Curse Studio and add me. I don't know, I think I have 91 followers right now on Facebook, and I think the gorilla has around 20k or something like that. I don't know. Maybe my tutorials are that bad or not that informative. I don't know. If you don't like a tutorial, something like that, or if you want to know anything else, or you want to know something better, or I explain something wrong, or my English is too bad, simply let me know. Leave a comment on VMO or something like that. Also on VMO, I guess this tutorial will be in a very low quality version on VMO because I don't have a Plus account at the moment, and I only can upload 500 megabytes and one HD video a week. So I'm not sure if this will be in HD on VMO, but you will probably find the YouTube link in the VMO description, and yeah, you will also find the download for the scene file in the description. So let's jump into Cinema 4D. First of all, I want to get out of my camera. What I did is I created a landscape, and I tried to make a little bit of a hole into the landscape, or leave a hole right here, a hole that is closed. You see around this hole there is this hole, there is this landscape, and so I applied a plane, simply a plane, and just move the plane upwards till it looks something like water, and then I just apply the water texture onto this plane. You can also have a look, as I said, I will share this whole scene file with you. You can have a look how this water is created. You have a little bit of noise in the bump channel, so it looks a little bit like the water is moving, and it's not just the still water. In the specular layer, I have the specular layer turned on with a Fresnel IOR of 1.6. I guess this is wrong for water. Water is 1.33. I also should change that in the reflection channel. I don't know why I used 1.6, but 1.33 would be the correct water. You can also see in the refraction layer the color is a little bit of greenish. The volume fog is turned on. What volume fog does is it gives the light a different color when it's scattering through the surface. So the emission color is basically what you can see when the light gets through, and the volume color is the basic color. And well, this is kind of dirty, so I wanted to go for dirty water, so this is what that is. And the specular layer is well, not so important, but also checked off trace specula, because trace specula is always a fake reflection, and trace specula will also not give you a color of the light. It will not reflect the sunlight, it will not reflect the color of the sky. It will only create a hot spot on the water, but it will not trace the colors of what it's reflecting. So that's why I always tick off trace specula. In certain cases you can tick it on. For the grass maybe you can tick it on to save some render time. You can tick off trace reflections and turn on trace specula. If you do, you need to adjust the highlight glossiness right here on the grass. But I will explain that to you again when I'm at the grass texture. Yeah, the bump I already explained. This was the specular layer and the refraction layer enabled with volume. A lot of funny stuff you can do with this reflection layer and with this volume. I also created this Coca-Cola bottle with this volume enabled, and yeah, it was really fun to play around with this stuff. Okay, this is the water material. For the landscape I took a simple earth material, downloaded it from CG Textures. I'm not sure if I'm getting in any trouble because I'm sharing this texture with you, and I downloaded it from CG Textures. I hope they are not too mad or things like that, but well, let's keep it a secret. Psst, and we should be fine anyway. So this is a texture from cgtextures.com. I almost get all my textures from CG Textures. This is a really nice site. And in the diffuse layer we have this this earth texture. I applied a filter over it and changed a little bit the brightness so it gets a little bit darker. In the specular layer I also added it in the specular color, added a colorizer over it, and in the colorizer I changed the gradient from this reddish color, yellow color that you get when you apply a colorizer for the first time to this black and white gradient. So you get a nice fall off, and also copied this channel afterwards, put it into the bump. The bump amount is 1 centimeter, so you have some kind of bump on the map and it doesn't look too flat. And the specular layer is really high. I think the Fresnel is at 6 or something like that, so you really get some kind of wet earth. This was the look I was after. Since you don't see much of the earth in the picture anyway, it isn't really necessary, but if you want to change a little bit the picture and things like that, you might want to have some wet earth, maybe here around the water and things like that, and maybe take for the rest a little bit of a different earth or a different Fresnel, so it doesn't look too wet and things like that. Okay, so this was the landscape texture. What I did next, I also created a light. This is pretty clear. I created a sunlight. So what you do, you go to create light, infinite light, create an infinite light, and then you add with a right click the Vray bridge light, and then you have the option sunlight, and then you enable physical sun, atmospheric shadows, and physical sky. This is really important. What you can do, you can adjust the light by yourself. What an infinite light with a sunlight does, when you move it upwards, and also when you change the rotation of the light, like move it a little bit downwards, move it a little bit upwards, things like that, the sun will change, and it will also change the daylight. So maybe it's 8 o'clock AM, or it's I don't know, 6 PM or something like that. It really depends on how you change the light. If you don't want to play around too much with this light itself, what you can do is you can use a physical sky object that is that you can find under create physical sky. Then you create a physical sky, and what that does is you can go to, let's click on the physical sky, go to time and location. What that does is it will set up the Vray light for you. So what you can do is you go to time and location, and what I took was 8 in the morning, something like 8 in the morning, and as city I choose Vienna, Austria, Europe, or Wien, Austria, Europe, it's the same, and 8 in the morning. Then you go into the sky, and no, you don't go into the sky, you go into the sun object, that's right. You turn on custom color. Then you can take this, I took this orange color right here, and the R255 and the G159 and the B43. Then you need to drop in the infinite light into the custom sun object. So this will be used as the light source, and then the physical sky will adjust the infinite light to the right position. I think it is somewhere, yeah, it's somewhere up here. So this is some kind of morning light, and this is what the physical sky does. And I think this comes in pretty handy, because if you say, oh, I don't really want a morning light or something like that, I want it in the afternoon, like, I don't know, 4 p.m. Is it 4 p.m.? I guess it's 4 p.m. in the afternoon. You can just go into the physical sky and say, okay, oh boy, I wanna have an Hawaii sun or something like that. So you go to Fiji, you go to Oceania, Fiji, go to Suva and change the time maybe to, I don't know, to 16 o'clock, something like that. And as you can see in the scene, if you turn on display ground shading, you can see as the sun changes, and this is really a nice effort. If you have turned on physical sky and the ground shading, you can also see where you have the sun and where you have the shadows, and so you can really play around how your scene should look like, and this is really nice. So okay, I will change this back to Austria, Vienna. Okay, so this was the light setup. I explained the water, I explained the landscape. Here we have a bool object that nobody needs. Okay, and then I will explain the rest. Okay, to the render settings, I will explain something. Always make sure, and please watch my other tutorial if you don't know how to set up a linear workflow. Sorry. Please watch my Getting Started with Vray for Cinema 4D tutorial. I will explain how to set up a linear workflow and things like that. I will explain it once more really quick. What I took in the color mapping, I go from linear multiply to Reinhardt, and also change the burn value to 1.1. What the burn value does is what it creates when the sun hits an object. It creates this hotspot, and this hotspot can really burn, and it is called a burn value. And you can change this burn value. Normally the burn value is at 1.0. In some scenes you might want to lower this, in some scenes you might want to increase that. I increased it to 1.1, so this isn't really much, but a little bit. The gamma is at 2.2, linear workflow is ticked on, effect background is ticked off. And if you hit Ctrl D in your scene, you also make sure that linear workflow is ticked off right here in Cinema 4D, otherwise you will get crazy results, at least in the viewport and things like that. What I also did, anti-aliasing is really low for the scene, because otherwise you get really big render times. This picture, when I first time worked on this picture, it was like, I don't know, a render time of 5 hours or something like that. And then I sent the scene file to my friend Silverwing and said, hey man, this is really crazy stuff. This is like, I don't know, we're rendering an exterior right here and it's taken like 5 hours. This can't be right. And when we go through the scene and we checked things, we recognized that the material we used, or the grass we used, was just way too big, and also the axis. We had a problem, a huge problem with the axis. And after changing all the stuff, the render time went down to 40 minutes the picture. And this isn't full HD or 720 or something like that. This is like 800. What was the final resolution? The final resolution was something like 850 by 874. So this isn't really a big picture, and it was still 40 minutes. So what you can do in the grass texture, you can tick off the trace reflections right here and turn on the trace specular, and then make sure that you have some highlight glossiness, because otherwise you will lose those hot spots on the grass, and then it will not really look as much as good as it did before. You need to play around a little bit with this value. I didn't try it out, but I guess I read a lot that this will speed up the render time for exterior nature shots like that. Okay, so back to the render settings. We were bridge anti-aliasing. So this is why the threshold is at 0.01 and the max depth division is at 50. It will never use a max depth division of 50. It's just, well, it's just a value typed in. Also the indirect illumination is turned on and is set for the final shot. I set it to IRLC medium. You can also take it very, very fast for big print size. This will render as well. The only thing you make sure when you change to a GI preset, please tick on under the, if you close everything, GI caustics general, open up the light cache and scroll a little bit down and enable the use light cache for gloss erase. This will really speed up your render times, and yeah, so this is another thing I did. Anything else I did? I don't know. I will make a little pause here and talk to you in a minute. Okay, I'm back. For you it was just a second, but yeah. Anyway, okay, this was the Vray settings. The next thing I want to explain is the material itself. So here we have the grass material. You will also get the texture. I've loaded a texture into the diffuse layer. Also in the specular layer, and activated Fresnel. The IOR is set to 2 and the reflection glossiness to 0.81. Here we have the trace specular that you can use, or maybe not. This is yeah, this really depends on you. You can turn on trace specular, turn off trace reflections, and then play with the highlight glossiness and also with the soften edges and things like that. And then you can see if you get the desired look, and you will save some render time, but it will not look as realistic as if you have turned on trace reflections. What I did is I changed the mix strength of the specular to 0.5, because if you leave it at 1, I didn't get all those hot spots, and it was really weird to figure this out, how to get nice hotspots on my grass and things like that. So in the end I simply changed the mix strength to 0.5. In the end it was a simple solution, but if you trial and error all the time, and you're trying, you try a lot of stuff, it's really time consuming. So yeah, but in the end it was only the mix strength set to 0.5, and this really helped. So this is what I did here. I didn't change anything else. We don't have a bump or anything like that, because grass really doesn't have any thickness. I mean it might have a slightly bump, but this is really not necessary to mention. What I did then is I created a shader, a Vray Bridge two-sided material. You can find it. It can be found where all the other materials are located too, in Cinema 4D for Vray. And then I simply dropped my advanced grass material into the two-sided material slot in the front and backside material, and added this two-sided material to my scene. So to my cloner object. And yeah, and this works pretty well, because a grass has some kind of transparency, and almost every flower has some kind of transparency. Well, not every flower, but a lot of them, like a dandelion or something like that, or a clover might have some transparency. And yeah, so the two-sided material really comes in handy for this. And I did this for the rest. For the clover, I used the exact same settings like for the grass. So you can see the mix strength is at 0.5, the IOR is at 2, and also the reflection glossiness is at 0.81. And I simply changed the texture in the diffuse layer and the specular layer, and I did the same for the dandelion. And then I always created an advanced material, dropped in a two-sided material, dropped in the advanced material, as you can see here is the clover, and applied it to my cloner object, and yeah, this is it. So always take a two-sided material, create an advanced material, and then drop it into a two-sided material, and this will work pretty well. So what I did to create my grass and my clover was, as you can see here, I created little leaves. So I started up with a plane. I created a plane, and let's say a height of maybe 8 centimeters for the grass, and a width maybe of 1 centimeter. And okay, this is maybe a little bit too thick, so let's change it to 0.5, something like that. Then I really decrease the width segments to 1 and the height segments maybe to 8, I guess. Then the rotation tool, 90 degrees, moved it a little bit upwards. And then what you can do is make this edible, and then you can use a lot of things. You can use the band deformer, you can use the FFD deformer, or you can simply just model it by hand. So what I did, I think I did it by hand. I took those 2 points, made it a little bit something like that, and then I just simply took for the first one I took a band deformer. So let's change the band deformer to maybe size, what was it, 1 centimeter here, and the height was 8, so let's take 9, and the set is almost nothing, so 1 centimeter. So here we have somewhere our band deformer. Let's move it here, and then move it upwards, and let's move it here. Okay. So now we have our leaf in the band deformer. So what you can do now is keep y-axis length and simply increase the strength, so it bends maybe a little bit in this direction, and then you can just simply select those two, go to objects, current state to object, delete this, oh no, maybe delete this not, leave this where it is, and move it a little bit to the side. And then we take the band deformer again, move it again to the plane right here, and this time we will rotate the band deformer this way, and maybe also move it a little bit this way, and make it a little bit bigger, maybe 2 centimeters. Okay, and now if we hit the strengths, it also gets banded this way. Okay, and let's select those two objects, current state to object, and now we can delete this. And what we can do now is change back into the point mode, select those points here, make them a little bit smaller maybe, something like that, and take the next point, make it a little bit smaller, so we have some kind of a nice fall off from start to finish for the leaf. So it's a little bit smaller here in the beginning. This was a little bit of work, but not really. What you really want to do is you really want to keep this low poly as you can, because in the end you have so much geometry in the scene, and Vray handles this really pretty well with this render instance button and things like that in the cloner object. But anyway, you really wanna try to keep it low poly as much as you can. So let me finish this. Just make it here a little bit smaller, and here, maybe here a little bit bigger, and here a little bit smaller. Okay, and here we go. It doesn't need to be too perfect, because you have so many leaves in the end, you can't really see much of a difference. So what I did is I always copied the first plane I created, and then simply did some different things. So in this case I copied maybe this one, and then just moved it over, and got into the point mode and just selected those points, changed this a little bit downwards, select these points, and let's move this downwards a little bit here, and as you can see, you have already a different grass leaf. doesn't look too good right now. You still need to play around a little bit with the settings and with the points and things like that. As I said, you can also use a FFT deformer. You might find this a little bit better than modeling it by hand. And in the end, I made 3 different grass leaves. You can see them over here. They're not really special, as you can see. Let me move them over. Okay, this is a bad idea. Let's move them out of the cloner object. As you can see, these are my 3 leaves I created. I will also include this scene file for you, so you can have a look at the grass leaves. So this is what I created here, and then I simply dropped them into a cloner object and took a disk object, and the disk object is, I think, has a radius of 50 centimeters, and then I just spread all the grass leaves with a cloner around this surface. And what I did is I turned on, changed the mode to object, and let me also grass leaf 1, and let me copy this, and here we go, grass leaf 2 and grass leaf 3. So we have those 3 grass leaves under the cloner object. Then I changed the mode from the clone object to object. Fixed clone turned on. Then as object I selected the disk, so the grass gets spread around here on the disk. And then I turned on align clone. Distribution was surface. And for the selection, polygon selection, what I did is there are several programs in the internet that help you to spread geometry like grass on surfaces. And there is one plugin. This is called Carbon Scatter. This is also working for Cinema 4D. This might be a little bit expensive. I don't know. I don't have it, but it's like I think $250 or something like that. But Carbon Scatter will really help you to spread proxies or grass, something like that, around surfaces. So this is really coming in handy. In 3D Max you have a script. This is called Advanced Painting. I guess everyone who worked with exteriors in 3D Max used this script, and this is for free. For Cinema there isn't really a free solution. I also tried with vertex maps to apply my grass to surfaces to get a better look. I don't know. I just couldn't figure it out. Maybe I should have used some more days, maybe 2 or 3 more days. Then I might have come up with some kind of a good solution. But yeah. So you can get Carbon Scatter. This will really help you. Or I think the Advanced Paint in 3D Max. There's also a plugin for Cinema 4D. This is called Paint on Surface. DNS plugins, I think this is around 32 euro, and this will also help you a lot. So get Paint on Surface if you want to spend the money. This is really a good plugin, what I heard. But anyway, what I did, because I don't want it so much grass at the edge of the disk, because if in the end we clone this whole disk multiple times, maybe 5,000, 10,000 times across the landscape, the disk will be deleted in the end, so we don't really need the disk when this is finished. So the disk will not appear in the final render. But all the grass leaves really need to align as good as they can on the landscape. And if you have a too bigger disk, the disk will not align good on these edges here, because the disk will just, I don't know how to explain that really good. My English sucks right now at the moment, but I will show you what I mean. If we have this disk here with 50 centimeters, and you have a lot of grass here on the disk, at the edge of the disk gets aligned something like that to the landscape, and you will really see how the grass will here stand, something like that. So we really try to reduce the grass at the edge of the surface, so that the next disk is aligned a little bit better, and it just looks something like that in the end. I think you know what I mean. you really need to be you really need to watch out to do this right, because otherwise you will have a little bit of a problem in your scene and it will really look awful. Okay, so this is why I keep the disk at 50, and this is why I will also explain this method to you. I make this polygon selection right here. So if I click on this polygon selection and go to select polygons, you can see I selected those polygons, and only on these polygons my grass is spread on the disk, as you can see. So in the cloner object, as object disk, then align clone distribution surface, count is 1000. So I cloned my 3 grass leaves 1000 times around this surface, and as selection the polygon selection from the disk. So this is what I did, and I think I also changed a little bit the coordinates, -90 and -270 for the grass, because the grass wasn't aligned too good. You also need to watch out for the axis. The axis are getting really weird sometimes, so you really need to check the axis a lot. If the grass is still, if the y-axis is still pointing upwards, and if you can still use the y-axis to move the grass at the y-axis. I had a lot of crazy results, and I thank Silverwing that he helped me fixing this problem. So okay, this was the grass, I guess. Yeah. What I also did was I added a random effector to the cloner to make the grass, yeah, of course, look a little bit random, because otherwise they would all point. If I turn off this random effector, you can see the grass is pointing in the same direction on the surface, and this really looks bad. So if you turn on the random effector, and what I did as parameters, the position, but the position doesn't really change, so we can turn this off. What I did, I changed the scale, and on the X and the Y and on the Z, just a small amount, as you can see, so the grass looks a little bit different itself, and also the rotation, so they are not pointing all in the same direction. And in the end, this is then this is what you get, and this is yeah, this is really good, really good. What you do then is smoke a cigarette, like me, and then you hit the C key on the cloner object, and as you can see, now we have all this little grass as geometry in our scene. And let's select the cloner null that is built and go down to our last leaf. Select shift, left mouse click, select all those, go to object, connect objects and delete. And now we have one object. This is our grass object, grass. Okay, I think in English it's 2s. Grass, and now we can delete the disk. And now we just have our nice grass. So what we do next is we edit, copy this, throw it in our scene, edit, paste, where we have set up our lights and our landscape, our physical sky. We have our textures ready, and we are so ready to go. So we build up a cloner object, another cloner object, and what I did here was I had a little bit of a kind of a problem with aligning those these meshes. As you can see, this mesh is really small for this scene, and this is perfect because it will be aligned perfectly, as you can see on this surface. So what I did is I took a null, and this also happened with the help of Silverwing. Just took a null object and then put in the grass and changed the coordinates to -90 degrees, and then it was perfect aligned. What I did with the cloner object, I did the same thing with the grass. I did with the grass leaves. I simply changed the mode to object, turned off the fixed clone in this case, took as object landscape 1, and as distribution I also used the surface. In this case the landscape, and the count is set to 30,000. This geometry here with all those polygons, and these are, how many polygons are those? Those are I think it's, yeah, these are 65,074 quads, in the end, and this will get duplicated 30,000 times. Okay, and what I did is I checked on render instances, and what render instances does, I think, is creating points all around the scene. Oh, I just changed my camera. This is bad. Is changing all the is changing the geometry to points, and this is telling the render engine, in this case Vray, where those plants or where these grass leaves are located, and this saves a lot of RAM. Because if you tick this off, and I wouldn't recommend that you tick this off in the cloner object render instances, all the geometry will be loaded when Vray comes up. When you try to render, all the geometry, all those quads need to get into the RAM, and it will take ages to render this out. I don't know if it takes ages. I think your computer will just crash. It's just like your CPU and your RAM is jumping out of your computer and getting a first flight ticket to Jamaica or something like that. This is no computer in the world is really or personal computer is really good enough to do things like that. So that's why you need to turn on render instances. Months ago, years ago, you used the Vray Bridge proxy generator and proxy file. This is still located on the plugins Vray Bridge, and you still can use them. But you don't really need to, since you have in the cloner the render instance button, and this is really important. Okay, what I did is let me reload this scene, because yeah, I want to have my camera right here. What I did was I also selected polygons on the landscape, as you can see. Here is my camera, so this from here to here to here is what I see. And what I did, I just choose those polygons that I see when I look at the when I look with the camera on the scene, and everything else is not selected, because if you would spread the grass all around the landscape, we would need a huge amount of clones to still have enough clones here where our camera is, and the geometry would really go way too high. So this is why I only selected the polygons here I see with the camera, and I also made sure that let's rename this to water and set this to X-ray. Okay, it's set to X-ray, and I also made sure that I don't have any polygons selected where the water is. You can select some polygons here, but then you will have some grass leaves that also will go out of the water. Well, this might look realistic in some cases, so you might want to do this, and you might also want to create maybe a different plant, and you might also want to deselect maybe here some polygons so you see something of the earth right here on the ground near the water and not just grass leaves. So this really depends on you, so you can really be creative, and you can also create your own plants. Yeah, you can create whatever you want. So this is what I did. This is the grass in the cloner spread around the surface. 30,000 count is the count, 30,000 clones. And yeah. Then with the clover, I did almost the same thing. Let me search for the file. All palettes. Here we go. As you can see, for the clover, I simply created a cylinder, and with really low poly. I think these are maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 polygons or something like that. And then I simply used the band deformer, and yeah, to have a little bit of bend in the cylinder. And what I did, I also modeled the clover, the shape. I just loaded in the shape of the clover of the texture I had, and then I just simply created this clover right here. I think this is the bad scene, because I don't have any polygons right here. I think this is just one polygon. Yeah. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is simply load in, I don't know, go to front view, as you can see here. This is when I created the dandelion. Let me see what I did. Where is the dandelion? Here we go. And also let me turn this off, and this off, and this, and also this, this, and this. And where is the clover? The clover is here. Okay. So this is the dandelion, and what I did is just I created another plane, and I did the same for the clover. I just loaded in the texture under options, configure, back, and then I just loaded in my reference picture, and made it a little bit smaller, so the plane isn't too big. So you really want to keep this in scale. So the plane should be something like, I don't know. Let's rotate it first. Let's change it to X-ray, and now let's change it down to maybe height 10 centimeters and the width maybe to 2. And as you can see, the plane is now okay. Our texture is a little bit too small, so let's go to options, configure, and then you can make this a little bit bigger right here. Maybe still also increase the size right here. This is really a big dandelion, so let's keep it at 8 and this at 2, and let's lower our plane to 8 centimeters. And also decrease the segments, maybe to 8 or something like that. You will need a little bit more. I think I cut it a little bit on this plane, so let's make it editable. And then what you do is go into point mode, and then you just simply try to align the points as good as you can to the dandelion, and right here, right here, right here. And as you can see, you really get weird results. You can take a knife, change it to loop, and then just simply make a cut right here, so you get more points, and then you can align them better. Right here, okay. Knife. It doesn't need to be too perfect. As I said, try to go as low poly as you can, and yeah. So when you're finished with the shape, you just simply load in the texture and try if the texture fits your dandelion. And if it does not, I would recommend that you do maybe a UV rollout. So you do a UV unwrap, something like that. I think there's a good video on YouTube for a Cinema 4D UV unwrap. UV unwrap. UV mapping, I think you have. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, this guy shows you how you can do a Cinema 4D tutorial UV mapping. This is just a case if you can't get it right with the UV mapping right here. So if you have UV mapping selected and the dandelion really looks awful, and you try it with the lengths right here, and you try it with the offset and things like that, and it just doesn't work out, you might wanna check out a tutorial how you can unwrap things, and then you just go into Photoshop, pass the texture on, and then you're all ready to go. So this should be perfect. I don't know how the UV unwrap really works when you clone that then afterwards, and also do a random effector, but I think it works out pretty well. I think a UV unwrap is the right thing to do if you can't get it right in Cinema 4D. Okay, so this is what I did with the dandelion, and this is also what I did with the clover. I just simply loaded in a clover shape right here, took a plane. What I did with the clover was also I changed the plane a little bit, so let me create another plane, and let's change the segments down, maybe to, I don't know how many I really used, but it was a little bit higher than the grass for sure, so something like that maybe for the clover. And I changed all the points, and what I really did was I used a FFD deformer in the end to change the points a little bit, because a clover isn't really flat, but it's a little bit higher here on the edges. I know it doesn't look really good right now, but you know what I mean. You get the idea. When you model it the right way and you take a FFD deformer, you can make it right. So a clover looks something like that. I need to change a little bit more points and things like that, so this needs to go a little bit more down here, and this needs to get also a little bit down here. Yeah, things like that, and this needs to also go a little bit down, and this needs to need to go a little bit upwards right here on the edge, and then you get your nice clover shape. So you know what I mean. A clover isn't just flat. A clover is a little bit banded and a little bit yeah. Take a FFT deformer, try it out. So here you can see, I will show you the clover again, and then you will see what I mean. My English really sucks sometimes, it's really bad. So as you can see, they are not just flat, they are a little bit, where is it? Where is my leaf? Okay, here is my leaf. Maybe I'll change the direction. Okay, and here you can see now the clover. Let's also delete the texture maybe, so you can see it better. Yeah. It's a little bit bended. And as I said, this was the bad clover I created because you don't have any polygons right here. So please do it with the plane mode I just explained. So in the end the clover will look something like that probably. Let's give me a knife. And let's change it to line mode so the clover will look something like that in the end. I hope not something like that, because this is really bad what I'm doing here right now. But yeah, you get the idea. Simply take the plane mode and you will get a nice clover, and this will also work much better with UV unwrap and also with UV texturing and things like that. Okay, so this was the clover and the dandelion and the grass, and yeah, I did the same thing with the clover and with the dandelion in my final scene. I also took the cloner object. I don't know how dandelion is really spelled in English, but I just name it like that. Here you have the grass and here you have the clover. If you have a look at the cloner object for the clover, you also have turned on render instances. This is really essential. I just have 10,000 counts here because I didn't want too much clover in the scene. I just wanted to have a lot more grass than clover. And I also have a polygon. I have the same polygon selection used here, so I don't have it spread around the whole landscape. So just where I have my camera, and I did the same for the dandelion. And yeah, this is what I did. And then I opened up, when I rendered this out with the final resolution and things like that, I opened up After Effects and loaded in my file. I don't know, where do we have it? I think this is it. I think this is the file. Yeah, this is the final file. What I did is I had these curves here. I corrected a little bit. It was a little bit too dark. I mean, it looks fine, but it was a little bit too dark for my taste. So I just pulled in a curve effect and changed a little bit the curves upwards, as you can see, just a little bit upwards right here. What I also did, working in a 30, I always save my pictures in a 32-bit open AXR format, so I can work with in a 32-bit space. What 32-bit does is really good explained by our great video co-pilot Andrew Kramer. I think he has a tutorial for 32 bits. So let me search it for you. 32 bits. Maybe we get. No, oh sorry. I think it was one of his first tutorials, and I guess not a lot of people watched it, but it's really interesting what you can do with a 32-bit space in After Effects, and it gives you a good idea, yeah, what you can do. So what video is it? Introduction to HDRI, camera shake compositing, After Effects 101. No, this is not it. Proxies and workflow tips, basic color keying. No. Well, there's a lot of great stuff. I think I need to check out his page a little bit more. Where is it? time freeze. I really wanna find this now for you guys, so you don't have to search it on your own. Site extensions, medical zoom, water drops. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't find it right now. But it's somewhere. I think it's somewhere down here. Somewhere down here. Maybe you have seen it already. But yeah, there should be a 32-bit video what you can do on his site. At least there was one, and I did see it. So it does exist somewhere. But anyway, you will find a lot of stuff on the internet what you can do with 32 bits. Okay, anyway, let's jump back into the scene. What I also did, used a Sapphire plugin to get this little film effect here. Also changes the color a little bit. With the Colorista, I also changed the color a little bit. So as you can see, I did a lot of color grading. I also rendered out a defocus pass. I will not explain this one. This is the only thing I will not explain because I'm not really happy with that. At set depth can be okay. I will explain it a little bit. You can render it out if you turn on under multipass depth rebuff at set depth, and then you type in the near and far value. The far value is always if you go into the camera and you go into the cinema. Yeah, here you have the object, camera, object, and you change the focus distance. You really want to increase that, and when this line here is not visible anymore, I think this is somewhere here. No, I think this is way too far. This is way too far. I think it's okay when you leave it at here, something like that, where this little edge here hits the landscape. This is the far value, so this is 359. So you type in far is 359. 359, and set depth near would be if you scroll down where this line, this edge here hits the ground. So this is somewhere here, so at 100, almost at 100. So you type in 100, then you go to multipass, click on post effects, and then you get to save and also save out the multipass image. What that does is it doesn't really give you a set depth pass like you would get it in Cinema 4D standard renderer, but you get another pass if you render this out. If you click on render to picture viewer, no, we don't wanna override that. Is it rendering? I don't know. You get, at least you can look if you click here on one of those rendered pictures and you go to layer. You can see when you switch to single pass that you have also a set depth layer, and you need to save this set depth layer out, and then you can use it in After Effects to create this nice set depth. What I also did was creating an optical flare here on the water, so it looks like the sun is hitting the water, and you get those little sparks on the water then. And this was just a little try to get this little sun here on the water, so it's a little bit reflecting. I don't know if it looks too good. I liked it, so I used it. And I just searched for butterfly on the internet and just cut it out in Photoshop and just put it into the picture. And then I just did a little bit of curves because I didn't like the orange color. I wanted a yellow color. I changed it with Colorista, and also added some motion blur because I wanted to make this butterfly look like it's really flying, so you would have a little bit of motion blur on it. And I also had a little bit, I also added here a little bit of a shadow. This was just because of the edge from the butterfly, because it was just way too bright, so I added a shadow here to get a little bit of a darker color right here. And I also added another shadow here in the grass because I don't know, I think it's maybe even a little bit too dark. And a butterfly would also be a little bit of transparent right here on the wings. This isn't so right, but it doesn't look too fake, so it's really okay. I like it. I think it's it makes the picture a little bit more beautiful and gives it a little bit more detail, and that's why I use the butterfly. All thought it's not too correct, but it's okay. And I also used a little bit of color correction here. This is called Farbtonsättigung in German, where you can just simply change how much color is applied, and yeah, you simply can change those settings. Okay, so this was it. No, this was not it. I also added an optical flare for this camera dirt right here in the options with optical flares, and I really like this plugin. I think it gets also used already in some Hollywood movies like Transformers and things like that. Under lens textures you have different lens textures, and simply delete all the lights down here. You would have normally, if you have a light like that, simply delete all of those. Go to the lens texture and load in one of those presets like Quaraz, and as you can see, now we have this lens texture effect right here. And also added a second one, as you can see here, and yeah, this also gets us a little bit more brightness in the picture. I really like that, as you can see. And yeah, so this is it. This is how you create the jungle scene. You can use any plant you want. I'm sorry that I didn't model from the beginning and then just and showed you. I think I showed you really everything you need to know. You also have the textures, you have the scene, you know how to build grass, you know how to build the clover, you know how to, if you watch a tutorial on YouTube, you know how to unwrap things, and you will learn a lot of stuff if you really try it out yourself. Create a landscape or use my landscape. Check out all the materials, what you can do, and then just simply jump into After Effects and do some color corrections and things like that. So I really hope that you like this tutorial, and I really hope this was helpful for you, helping you building up a realistic grass clover scene. As I said, you can use any plant you like. Simply go out into your backyard, get your your cell phone cam out and start photographing, or just rip off a leaf from a tree or something like that, lay it on your table and make a good photograph, and then just simply cut it out in Photoshop and use the same technique. Use a plane in Cinema 4D, pass it on to your texture, and then just apply the texture with UV unwrap, or maybe it works even so in Cinema 4D, and you're all set to go. And yeah, this was my tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you guys. And as I said, thanks for over 500 followers right now on VMO. Please also join my Facebook page. It would be really nice to have a lot more of people there on Facebook who just ask things, who just want to know things, who maybe also post stuff for other people that they can check out. And you will also get way more earlier informed about new tutorials than on VMO. You also can ask for tutorials. You can also ask me questions about this tutorial and things like that. And you can also write me some lines if you want to know anything. So please join me on Facebook. You will find me under Curse Studio. So simply search for Curse Studio on Facebook. And yeah, I think this is it for now. I wish you a nice day, and I might come back with this Coca-Cola tutorial in the next weeks. I'm not too sure. I really need to see what I need to do to earn some money again, because yeah, I need to afford my cigarettes. So okay, have a nice day. See you next time. I hope this was really helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or anything else, leave a comment on VMO or leave a comment on my Facebook page, and I will answer as soon as I can. So see you next time. Bye bye.